My name is Andy, and this is Pathbend, your guide to personal growth and healing, blending science, art, and spirit. The topic of today's video is the drive for recognition, an invisible yet powerful force that shapes every aspect of our social lives. What if I told you that this drive is as fundamental to your survival as food and water? And just like with food, the way you satisfy this hunger can either nourish you or leave you starving. Let me explain. From the moment we're born, we have a primal need for stimulus, sensory and emotional stimulation. This isn't something optional. Babies need physical handling, touch, and maternal connection, not just for emotional well-being, but for their very survival. This is what psychiatrist Eric Berne calls stimulus hunger. And here's what's crucial to understand. This stimulus hunger never goes away. We have it with us for life. To give you an example, even the most hardened prisoners dread solitary confinement because it starves their biological system of stimulus. Without sensory input, the mind collapses in on itself. So, even as adults, we crave this kind of stimulation. But our social and biological reality forces us to look for it in more subtle and symbolic ways. As we grow out of infancy, we come face to face with reality. We realize we can no longer fulfill our need for physical intimacy as easily and as often as we did when we were babies. Why? Because life gets in the way. We start running into other people, social constraints, psychological defenses, and other biological realities. So we have to find roundabout ways to meet our fundamental needs. And what we end up doing is redirecting or sublimating our instinctual drive to be physically held into something more socially accessible: recognition. In other words, we convert our stimulus hunger into recognition hunger. Recognition, in its simplest form, is just having another person notice us, acknowledging our existence. It's not a full substitute for physical touch. It's definitely a compromise. So even as adults, at our core, we never stop craving that original infantile level of physical handling. But because it's no longer available, we rely on recognition as a symbolic surrogate form of human touch. It's not as fulfilling, but it does the job. It keeps us psychologically well adjusted and connected enough to avoid emotional starvation. You can think of this hunger in the same way as you think about food. Just as you can starve from a lack of food, you can starve from a lack of stimulation, most often delivered indirectly in the form of recognition. For example, loneliness is one of the most painful forms of deprivation. Research shows that chronic loneliness is as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, increasing your risk of heart disease, stroke, and even leading to premature death. And on the flip side, just like overeating leads to blood sugar spikes and constant cravings, overstimulation, the endless chase of likes, comments, and external validation, becomes a temporary, unsatisfactory fix, leaving you craving for more while never truly satisfying your deeper need for connection. Let's extend that food metaphor a little bit further to illustrate the spectrum of approaches individuals take. Some people are recognition gourmets. They prioritize quality over quantity. They savor their connections with the delight and attention of a fine dining experience. They focus on authentic interactions that offer deep nourishment. Others take a more fast food approach, grabbing fleeting hits of attention wherever they can. The satisfaction is temporary, leaving them with bloat and itchiness once they've consumed the moment. What about quantity? On one extreme, there are the ascetics who withdraw from the table altogether, choosing to subsist on scraps of recognition as a way to avoid disappointment or pain. And on the opposite end, you'll find the faddists, People who always chase the latest fashion in the social cuisine, cycling through personas to stay relevant without ever finding something real to anchor them. Here there's another aspect worth noting. Many people use material possessions and status symbols as proxies to elicit recognition. These serve as signaling devices and as such are more visible and easily accessible tools in the social game. Because they're simpler and less risky than developing the courage to be vulnerable and authentic, they act as shortcuts that many people default to as a way to satiate their hunger for recognition. To illustrate this, let's take a man with a Ferrari. He may look like a player in the mating game, yet without deeper emotional engagement, his status signaling remains purely transactional. Superficial markers attract partners who are ready to offer equally superficial recognition, creating a self-reinforcing loop of surface-level interactions and ultimately shallow, unsatisfactory relationships. On the other hand, some people learn that transactional validation seeking can't really fulfill their deeper needs, so they take the long road to cultivating social bonds, taking a genuine interest in others, embracing vulnerability, and investing in relationships that, with time, begin to offer true connection and intimacy. Not everyone is wired for this level of depth, though. It's simply a fact of life. For some people, especially those with narcissistic tendencies, recognition is more about appearances than about connection. Looking for attention becomes an endless pursuit that sustains them moment to moment, but never fills the underlying void. If you've stayed with me this far, I hope you're finding value in this video. Please hit the like button below and subscribe to my channel. It takes only a second and supports my mission to deliver free quality content that helps others live more fulfilling lives. Thank you for your support. Now, here's where things get truly fascinating. The hunger for recognition isn't just about individual psychological survival. It's one of the primary engines that powers human social life. From casual conversations to complex social rituals, the quest to satisfy our recognition hunger forms the fabric of our social structure. Our pastimes, rituals, and activities all serve as outlets to negotiate and exchange recognition. This brings me to a very important topic, social games. This is the most sophisticated form of interpersonal exchange. Unlike pastimes or rituals, games have two unique characteristics. They carry an ulterior motive and they offer a psychological payoff. So these games are rarely played for fun. They're psychological battlegrounds where players look for validation, control, connection, power, often through elaborate unconscious rules. Recognition becomes the currency of these interactions, driving everything from anxiety reduction to subtle power plays and status negotiations to life position and trajectory. It's important to note that playing the game isn't the only option. If we become conscious of the way a specific game works, we can choose to step outside, subverting its rules and embracing autonomy. Awareness of the ubiquitous presence of social games, however, and how they work, makes you a lot more powerful. It enables you to navigate social life with greater competence, confidence, and intentionality. If the topic of games pique your interest, in the next video, I'll dive into how they can shape our relationships, our identities, and even our destinies. Subscribe below so you won't miss it. Thanks for watching and see you next time.